You consider it, okay, you consider it child abuse. You consider it child abuse because you believe that a child...
The clash between Ben Shapiro and woke culture has been fierce, but nothing could have prepared anyone for what he just did. In a single move, Shapiro has turned the entire conversation upside down, leaving both critics and supporters stunned. No compromises, no backing down, just pure unapologetic fire. This bold move is something no one saw coming, and its impact might just change everything.
Scientific anti-realism is the concept that when you see me, you see, you know, my skin, my hands, everything about me. But you do not see my cells, you do not see my atoms, you do not see the things that make up the things, they are just physical. So there is no really true way to prove, other than by hitting me, obviously, that I am right here, if it is only us two talking.
Another college student asks Ben a question that explores how his views on transgender issues intersect with the concept of scientific anti-realism. The student begins by explaining scientific anti-realism, which is a philosophical idea that suggests we can only perceive the physical aspects of objects, but not their true underlying reality, like cells or atoms.
So therefore, this would apply to any gendering things, including intersex, which can have an XX or XY chromosome and have androgen or estrogen.
Applying this idea to gender, the student suggests that we cannot fully know a person's biological makeup just by looking at them, which makes it problematic to determine someone's gender based on appearance alone. The student brings up intersex individuals as examples of how biological traits, such as chromosomes or hormone sensitivity, do not always align with traditional definitions of male or female.
We can't determine sex?
I would like to narrow it down to we cannot fully identify a gender of a person right when we see them, so therefore I believe that it is not within my own individual liberty to gender that person.
Ben responds by acknowledging the complexity of the question, but quickly moves to clarify his stance. He argues that despite the existence of intersex people, in the vast majority of cases, we can easily determine someone's sex based on physical characteristics. Ben believes that the presence of intersex individuals, while interesting, does not disprove the biological duality of sex. In his view, sex exists as a binary system, male and female, and has been the basis for human reproduction throughout history, as well as in other mammal species. He emphasizes that intersex people are biological anomalies, and even in those cases, most intersex individuals still present as either male or female. Therefore, the existence of intersex conditions does not invalidate the concept of sex or make it impossible to determine someone's gender in most situations.
That in 99.8%, 99.9% of cases, you absolutely can gender somebody based on looking at them. Like really, if you're going to use intersex people as an example of not being able to do that, this does not obviate the biological duality of sex upon which all progeneration is based for all of human history and for all mammalian species. So intersex people do not invalidate the concept of sex.
Ben continues by discussing the objective standards used to determine sex. Historically, sex has been determined based on external characteristics like genitals, which he points out is still the method used by doctors when assigning sex at birth.
Intersex people are people who have a biological anomaly. And by the way, in most cases of intersex, those people still manifest as either a male or a female. So the idea that intersex exists does not invalidate the idea that there is a male and that there is a female, or that in nearly all cases, I can tell the difference between a male and a female. Again,
he acknowledges that if someone were to present chromosomes or other biological data that contradict their appearance, it might challenge the initial perception, but this does not change the fact that sex is grounded in an objective standard, such as the presence of certain genes, like the SRY gene. He stresses that this objective standard has existed throughout human history and remains valid today.
Intersex people are people who have a biological anomaly. And by the way, in most cases of intersex, those people still manifest as either a male or a female. So the idea that intersex exists does not invalidate the idea that there is a male and that there is a female, or that in nearly all cases, I can tell the difference between a male and a female. Again,
Ben then shifts the conversation to the broader issue of transgender identity and his disagreement with the idea that gender is entirely subjective. He argues that the claim made by some in the transgender community that sex can be entirely self-determined without any connection to biology is unscientific.
Scientific nonsense. Yes, Caitlyn Jenner had every biological characteristic of a male. There is no evidence whatsoever that Caitlyn Jenner was a female, because Caitlyn Jenner was an Olympic athlete as a male. with all of the chromosomes and all of the junk and all of it. Right? That is it. That is a biological male. And then we are supposed to believe that Caitlyn Jenner is a female. Listen, I'm happy to call Caitlyn Jenner Caitlyn because people can legally change their name. If I were out to dinner with Caitlyn Jenner, I wouldn't go out.
As an example, he discusses Caitlyn Jenner, explaining that, biologically speaking, Jenner was a male based on chromosomes and physical traits, even though Jenner has transitioned to identifying as female. Ben expresses that while he is willing to use people's chosen names in social settings out of respect and politeness, especially if it avoids unnecessary conflict, he believes it is important to maintain that biological sex is objective and not something that can be changed based purely on individual feelings.
Saying that sex is malleable. I'm saying there is male and female biologically. That is true, yes.
Right.
But I'm saying that gender is a spectrum. I'm saying that there is at least male, female, and non-binary because of this strange.
And what I'm saying is that there's a word game that goes on when people discuss gender. Because if we are talking about certain characteristics to which we attribute to
The student then tries to clarify, stating that they agree with Ben that male and female exist biologically, but they argue that gender is a spectrum. According to the student, gender should include identities like male, female, and non-binary. Ben acknowledges this viewpoint but raises concerns about how terms like male, female, woman, and man are being used.
feminine. If you want to say that there's a genetic male with feminine characteristics, we're fine. That's a male with feminine characteristics. Fine, that's fine. I mean, okay. So, you're a man with feminine characteristics. That's cool. Who cares? Okay, but that doesn't make you a woman. In other words, if you are going, what we are now doing is we're playing a semantic game where we say a male with feminine characteristics is a woman.
He believes that using these terms interchangeably for people who may not fit traditional gender roles can be misleading. For example, he argues that a man with feminine characteristics should still be considered a man, not a woman, and a woman with masculine traits should still be considered a woman. He feels that conflating gender with sex confuses the issue and even risks misgendering individuals who are simply non-conforming, such as butch women or effeminate men.
That's nonsense. Or a woman with male characteristics, masculine characteristics, is a man. That's nonsense too. And by the way, it actually ends up misgendering a lot of people who are just butch women or effeminate men. Right? So all of this. So in other words, by trying to separate out gender and sex completely, and then by using terms like male and female or woman.
Ben points to the real-world consequences of this confusion, especially in areas like sports. He refers to a situation involving Ilhan Omar, who had written a letter in support of a transgender woman competing in women's powerlifting.
And man that are innately connected to sex. What you are doing is deliberately, not you, what people are doing is deliberately confusing the issue such that you get idiocies like Ilhan Omar writing to the Powerlifting Association of the USA saying that a transgender woman who is a biological male should be able to compete against biological women because it is a myth that men can pick up heavier objects than women. That is not a myth, that's called science.
Ben finds this idea absurd, claiming that it ignores basic biological differences between men and women, such as men's natural physical strength advantage. He believes that this is a clear example of how ignoring objective biological facts can lead to unfairness and distortion of reality.
You have claimed that you oppose medical transitioning for these children, namely and specifically to what normally happens is puberty blockers, which you have called you called it child abuse. Is that correct?
It is. That's correct.
You consider it okay. You consider it child abuse. You consider it child abuse because you believe that a child is not capable of consenting to what you consider are irreversible.
In another discussion, a college student engaged Ben in a debate about the ethics of medical transitioning for children, specifically focusing on the use of puberty blockers. The student began by addressing Ben's strong opposition to these medical procedures. Ben had previously stated that he believes administering puberty blockers to children is a form of child abuse. His reasoning is rooted in the belief that such procedures are irreversible and potentially harmful. Moreover, Ben argued that children are not capable of giving informed consent to these life-altering treatments.
Procedures, is that correct?
A damaging, irreversible procedure.
Damaging, okay. Ben, are your children circumcised? Did you circumcise your children?
Yes, I have two sons and they're both circumcised.
Why would you do that? Isn't that kind
As the conversation continued, the student shifted the focus to a different but related topic, circumcision. He questioned Ben about whether his own children were circumcised. Ben confirmed that both of his sons had been circumcised. The student then challenged Ben's stance, suggesting that there was a contradiction in his views. He implied that if Ben was so concerned about the bodily autonomy of children in the context of puberty blockers, then why was he comfortable with circumcising his sons? The student argued that circumcision also involves violating the bodily autonomy of an infant, who obviously cannot consent to the procedure. He mentioned that circumcision can lead to a loss of sensitivity, which could be seen as a harmful consequence.
A violation of bodily autonomy. I can tell you there are millions of men across time who've been circumcised. This is not a quote-unquote damaging procedure in the same way that, taking a boy and shooting him full of estrogen so you can later cut off his and is. That's an absurd comparison on every level.
In response, Ben defended his decision to circumcise his children by citing personal experience and cultural norms. He mentioned that he himself is circumcised and has not experienced any negative effects. Ben dismissed the idea that circumcision is harmful, pointing out that millions of men around the world have been circumcised without significant issues. He also noted that circumcision is a long-standing practice with deep cultural and religious roots, and he did not view it as a violation of bodily autonomy. Shapiro's relentless stand against woke culture is only heating up, and this moment could be a turning point. What comes next could reshape the entire debate. Stay tuned for more updates on this unfolding story. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss the latest insights. If you found this breakdown eye-opening, give it a like and share it with others who need to see what's really happening.